and it's really a lot of fun to coach them and teach them debate because they're very motivated to learn. So what I'm going to do is just tell you a little bit about what a tournament is, what debate coaching means, and just a little bit of insight from me as the coach of the program. This is my 12th year of teaching. It's going to be my second year online. I taught completely online last year. I've used Zoom, I've used Google Meets, and it's been a learning curve, but I think I'm starting to get good at it as long as I can figure out how to share my screen. But for debate tournaments, they really are open to every student pretty much in the US. There are regional and national options depending on where you're located. And really they go from elementary divisions all the way up to high school. So pretty much any student who has the desire can prepare to compete. And that's what our debate tournament classes are focused on. There are several debate events that we do. We mostly concentrate in public forum and Lincoln Douglas debate. If you have more questions about that, we could talk about it later. But one of them is a team event. One of them is an individual event. The topics change every 2 months, and they include current events issues with a heavy focus on social, political, and economic implications. So for competition debate, it's serious topics. And we do fun topics and we do easier to access topics in class in order to train students. But when it comes to the competition, they're debating current events. And in my experience, they are talking about issues that your average 4th through 7th grader is not talking about. Students prepare for the competition by preparing a research-based speech on the affirmative and negative side of whatever the resolution is. So they have to have materials prepared for both sides of the resolution before the debate begins. Students also will plan for their rebuttal speeches by researching common arguments, by predicting what they think the other side will say, and they will write out responses to those. And then in practice, we practice those responses, and we have practice debates as well. Once a student is registered for a tournament, they will compete in a series of preliminary rounds. So you go to a competition and you will have between 3 and 6 debates, no matter what. It doesn't, you can lose all 3, you can win all 3. You are guaranteed to debate a certain amount of times. And based upon your record, your wins and losses determines if you will advance in the tournament, which is what everyone wants to do. That's how you get the trophies. And when you advance, you go into a elimination style playoff where you go head to head against other teams, and it's single elimination. So last person standing is the winner. How do debate tournaments benefit students? They benefit a lot. Debate itself is a really great academic curriculum because it trains the whole student. It trains critical thinking, writing skills, reading comprehension, but debate tournaments add the competitive element. And as many of you probably know, adding that competition motivates students a little bit more, and it certainly drives them to excel and to kind of engage more than they would if it was just like a regular competition. But tournaments at every level are a rigorous challenge because it's not just everybody that enters these competitions. It's the best and brightest across the country. Every year I have the honor of judging high school debate tournaments where I'll be judging students who next year will be debating at Harvard or the University of Michigan. And the students that participate in this activity really take education seriously, and they love to compete. And so with that comes a lot of challenges because people are trying to out prepare one another. And so having a consistent practice and preparation schedule is required, but there's also a good deal of strategy involved as well, and even a little luck occasionally. But preparing for these competitions improves the student's academic life because of all the academic skills that it practices, but it also improves their social lives. They start to befriend their teammates. And I know our students at Maccabee have become friends. Some of them were friends when they entered, they joined together. But several students who took debate tournament classes together are friends through Maccabee. And because they have common interests, a lot of times debate students connect at a level that they may not with their other peers. But debate does build critical thinking because you're thinking about a topic from multiple ways. And you're also not really constrained into the types of arguments you can make. So if you think of an idea about a resolution, then I can help you write that idea down and turn it into an argument. And so it builds your critical thinking. It makes you a better reader because you read more and you eventually start to read faster. Public speaking and communication skills obviously are a big component of debate because you're presenting a speech to a judge, but you're also communicating with that judge and communicating with your partner. So the reason I'm still in debate, like I said, I've been a teacher for a long time, is because I really believe in debate as an educational event. I coach students to try and win competitions and be successful, but really even students who, don't even compete at tournaments, they gain a lot out of our debate classes. So the basics to preparing for a tournament, and I emphasize these in all of my tournament classes, all of the debate classes really. The very beginning, what you need to know is you have to know the topic and the rules of the event. So that we cover early on in the semester. And then you also need to decide which competition you will go to. There are a lot of competitions happening, and it can be difficult to navigate because of time zones. All the competitions happening now are online this year. I assume that will change at some point, but it's for the fall, and I think the spring, most competitions will be held online. So you have to kind of balance that a little bit. Research is another thing that you have to prepare for. Students will have to come prepared with credible academic sources. And really the key is to understand the research and use it effectively in your debate. So it's not just understanding what the article says, but knowing how to create an argument using that evidence. And thirdly is speaking. Regular, consistent speaking practice is necessary. I always tell my students who are always very busy that you don't have to do speaking drills for 3 hours a week, but you should establish a short or a reasonable practice schedule. And really just consistency is key with debate practice. The regular debater has to be clear. They also have to be loud, and they have to be quick. And they have to be quick thinking, and they have to be quick in their responses as well. And then the last thing is that practice. Practice is essential, obviously. But for class time, we will meet once a week, in some instances, twice a week. But that is for new concepts and receiving feedback. That's for me to teach you new things about debate. That's for you to get some feedback based on the speeches that you give. But the rest of the time is really up to the debater to take what we've learned in class and practice it. Tournament prestige. So one of the reasons that debate tournaments are so popular is because they are prestigious. They're oftentimes hosted by colleges and universities. In fact, many of these colleges and universities will also have coaches and judges at the tournament. And for those older students, those juniors and seniors who are looking at colleges, those students sometimes get offers for debate scholarships at these tournaments. And besides just the benefits that debate comes with, of I mentioned before, the opportunity for those students who are interested in competing in debate is really high. And in my coaching experience, I mostly have coached high school students, and that's I've used debate as kind of a pipeline for college, either in-state or out of state, depending on the student's desires. And it's certainly a tool that you can use to help you prepare. This year and last year, some of the major universities that hosted invitationals included Georgetown, Harvard, University of California at Berkeley, Stanford, and then the southeastern schools, University of Texas at Austin, University of Georgia, et cetera. So there's a lot of colleges, a lot of exposure to colleges. And when we start having in-person tournaments again, it's always fun to get to visit those campuses. There are major national competitions that are also hosted by high school programs as well, and they'll attract competition from across the country. So as mentioned before, our tournaments now are online, which is going to attract people from different parts of the world even, and different parts of the US. But even in-person tournaments, some of these competitions become attended by hundreds of teams across the country. And so it really is a nationwide competition at these major events. And that's that's our focus. We don't expect students to jump into this right away, but we want to be able to provide this opportunity for those students, as well as students who are just brand new and learning debate. So what kind of topics do we have? We get this question quite a bit. In class, like typical class time, we don't always debate these really serious current events topics because they require a lot of research. Most students don't have knowledge, sort of common knowledge about these things. So we do a lot of different topics in class. But when we prepare for tournaments, this is kind of a good idea that's listed on the screen of what types of topics there are. So some of you students may be looking at these going, what is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization? What is the World Trade Organization? And I just noticed I have a little typo here. This one's not actually the WTO, but hopefully you can still get a good idea of what these topics are because they're pretty reflective of what we work on. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, increasing its commitments to the Baltics, cryptocurrency topic, and then this topic has been really fun and really relevant with the member nations of the World Trade Organization reducing intellectual property protections for medicine. So we're talking about should medical patents be waived during pandemics or in general. Last year, we did some interesting topics as well. We debated about West Africa. We debated about social media's impact on democracy and everything in between. And, we had smaller topics, fun topics like we'll do in our workshop today. We're not going to debate the WTO in the workshop today, if anybody's worried about that. But ultimately, this is kind of the pinnacle of competition. So that concludes the presentation I have. I don't know if we want to go over the levels now, Jiao. I'm not sure if you want to do that now. We can. If not, I'm ready to do the demo debate.
The kids have been waiting for a long time. Just go ahead with the demo.
Okay.
Ms. Flowers?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you want to ask the student who are attending today what grade they are? And
Yeah.
level?
That would actually, thank you. That would actually be good. If the students who are attending, could you do two things for me? One, if you could turn your camera on so I know that you're a student and you're going to be doing the demo debate with us. And two, if you can type in the chat that information, your grade, that would really help us. I know we'll get quite a few people, but that'll give us a good idea of what grade everyone's in. Very good. All right. Looks like a lot of 4th grade through 6th grade. Zoe, 2nd grade. Is that a 2? Zoe, are you a 2nd grader?
Yes,
3.
I am second grader.
Welcome, Zoe. I'm glad you're here. You might be the youngest, which is great. Oh, there's 3rd. Oh, no. Who has you beat?
There was someone in first. 2 people.
Yeah, that sounds like Aiden. Was that Aiden?
I'm in first grade too.
Yeah.
You're in 1st grade too?
Yes.
All right. Very good. I have some young children at my own home. I have a 3rd grader and a pre-Ker. He's a 4-year-old, 4th grade, 9 years old. Awesome. Okay, so we have a really great mix of students here. 5th, Australia, 8th grade. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and begin the demo. We stay in the same Zoom, right? We just go with the demo here. Just checking. Okay. All right, so parents, try and withhold yourself. I know you're going to want to jump in and share the arguments, but this is for kids only. This is going to be a demo debate, which is supposed to be kind of a sample of how I try and operate my classes. So I'm just going to go ahead and begin that now. Typically, I'll start off with a warm-up question or two, maybe some word games or like some critical thinking, just something to warm the students up and interact with them and talk to each other and just to have some fun, because ultimately we want to have some fun. If we want to learn, we want to have fun too. And so we would usually start with that. And then after the warm-ups, I will jump into the lesson, and the lesson will be led by me. I'll teach new concepts or give feedback on work that the students have done. And then the students will do debate or they'll do some type of individual activity. My lessons are also interactive. All right, so students out there, interactive, in case you don't know what that means, it means that I'm going to be looking for your participation. So I'm going to be teaching you some things, and then I'm going to be asking you to show me that you understand those things. Now, if you've had my classes before, or if you've had a debate class before, you might already know how to do some of this stuff. And that's great. And you can share your answers. But if you're new to debate, hopefully you'll learn some new concepts here. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. If you do have a question, go ahead and let us know. I'm going to minimize the participants here. Oh, I do see one hand raised. Is it Ambi? Go ahead. Ambi, do you have a question?
So for the debate, are we getting like assigned topics?
Oh, well, you know what? I'm going to show you in just a second. Like you're about to find out. So today's lesson is going to be about argumentation and refutation. These are the two most fundamental skills that you need in debate. You have to have the ability to create an argument, but then you also have to have the ability to refute someone's argument. We're going to talk about what each one of those things mean, and then we're going to practice making arguments, and then we're going to practice refuting arguments, and possibly even refuting each other's arguments. All right, the three parts of an argument. This is the thing that you have to know, and you may already know this, but the first one, somebody tell me, what is the first part of an argument? You can raise your hand. Oh, I see Aiden. Go ahead, Aiden. What is the first part of an argument?
It's the claim, which is basically the entire point of what you're trying to say. Just
yes,
what you want to say.
Yeah, it's the initial statement. It's what you're trying to prove. You can think of it like a topic sentence of a paragraph. Now, who could tell me the evidence? What is the evidence? Lawrence Lee, I saw your hand first. Go ahead.
Okay, so the evidence is basically why your claim's true.
Yes, very good. It's why your claim is true. Another way to look at that is it is the proof given. Okay, so if I say like dogs are the greatest pets, that's my claim. My evidence might be they sleep in the back of your Zoom class, as you can see my dog currently is doing. All right, so evidence is proof, but you're giving support for your claim. Look, Solomon's looking, there she is, she's asleep. All right, the third part of an argument is the reasoning. So many hands, I'm loving this participation. Let's go with 2030, Derek Lee. Are you from the future, Derek?
No.
Okay.
So the reason is like the reason this works.
Yes, that is not wrong. It's also posted on the screen if you want to read it out loud for me, Derek.
Sort of like how it's connected.
Yeah, Solomon. Okay, if in case you missed that, he said it's how it's connected. Aiden, go ahead.
It's basically the evidence is that the reasoning is basically saying why the evidence has to do with your claim or why it supports your claim.
Yes, you have to explain the link to it. Very good. Thank you. I still see a couple hands raised. Hazel, did you want to add to that, or are you good?
I got the same thing.
You got the same thing?
Yeah,
All right.
my hand.
Okay. All right. Very good. We are going to have an activity here in just a second. So the three parts of an argument, we have the claim, which is the initial statement that you make. We have the evidence, which is the proof that you use to support the claim. And then you have the reasoning, which explains how the evidence supports the claim. You have to have all three of these parts in order to have an argument. Let's take a look at a visual example. The dog picture is supposed to come a little bit later, but you can see it now. So the claim here is there are dogs nearby. All right, so that is our claim. We're trying to prove that there are dogs nearby. How do we know there are dogs nearby? By the evidence, which is you hear barking and howling in the distance. And then the reasoning will explain dogs are animals that bark and howl. So you can see how the claim and the reasoning are actually connected. There are dogs nearby. Dogs are animals that bark and howl. How do we know that? What's the proof? Well, the proof is the evidence. And you can see here, there are dogs nearby. Molly and Chloe are my two dogs. They do sometimes come in and out as they please. So you may see them as well. A couple of questions here. Solomon, do you have a question?
No, I don't.
Okay. Aiden, was that hand from earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Okay, so this is what an argument looks like. These are what dogs look like. You all know that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to practice writing our own arguments. One thing we're going to do is a fun superpower argument. All right. So in this argument, the claim could be either the better superpower is invisibility, or the claim could be the better superpower is time travel. You get to pick which argument you want. Now, before we share, let's take 2 minutes to think about our answer. One thing I will tell you is I want you to think about your answer. I see some people already raising their hand, but you want to make sure that you have just one evidence and just one reasoning. All right, so we got some hands raised already, so let's see if we're ready. Go ahead, Ambi, go ahead. Am I pronouncing your name right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Go ahead, Ambi, go ahead. Ambi K.
My claim is that time travel would be better. My evidence is because you could use time travel to go back and then pick the other one. So that would make it better because you actually get both due to the fact that you went back, got it, and then you go back to the future. And then you have 2 superpowers now.
Okay, very good. Let me put that up here so I can show everyone your evidence and reasoning. You picked the better superpower is time travel because you could go back in time. So that is evidence. Obviously, if you can time travel, you can travel back in time as well. So, and you actually said the word so, which is a good way to know if you're using reasoning. So it means you basically, I'm going to summarize what you said. It means you could have the best of both worlds or time worlds, ... Okay, very good. So the reasoning connects why the evidence proves the claim. And in this case, Ambike said you can go back in time. So that means best of both worlds. Looks like we have a couple of other arguments. Corinne?
I actually raised my hand because I want to know what's the limit to invisibility and time travel. Like for invisibility, do you make yourself invisible or everything else invisible? And is there a time limit?
I would say it is yourself that you make invisible and there is no time limit.
Okay, and for time travel, how far back can you go?
To the beginning of time. I don't know how far forward you can go.
But if
Lauren,
could you time travel back your age?
yes. Yes.
Okay.
Lawrence, do you want to think about it some more, or are you ready? Or are you just wondering?
So
Go ahead,
I think
Lawrence.
it's invisibility because time traveling is very dangerous and you could break the and it's a paradox. So basically,
Start over because why? What's the evidence?
because time travel is very confusing and like a paradox.
Okay. Very good. Okay.
So it basically means that you could break reality itself and also kill yourself.
Okay, so this means you could break reality. Okay, so that is an argument really against time travel, more so strongly for invisibility, but it still works, right? Lawrence said time travel is confusing and a paradox. We only have 15 minutes, so we can't explain time travel to you. Otherwise, I'm sure Lawrence would. But the reasoning is you could break reality, right? So that emphasizes how the evidence supports the claim. Let's hear another argument. How about Sophia? Go ahead, Sophia.
So I think we should have time travel instead of invisibility, because if you have time travel, then if you make something bad, you could go back and switch it again to make it good again. Because if you made something bad, a big mistake, and your mom was very mad or your parents, then you'll be punished.
Very good.
So
and
if you could So if you could go back in time, then you could fix the mistake. So then you'll be better, and your mom won't be, and your parents won't be mad at you.
Very good. Parents won't be mad at you. Very good. So we have the evidence of you can go back in time and fix your mistake. But then, Sophia, you did a great job of giving the reasoning for that, which is, if you can fix your mistakes, time travel is better because you can make sure your parents won't be mad at you. Very good. Let's get one more argument on this one, and then I have another argument that we're going to do. How about Hazel?
I think the better superpower is time travel.
Okay.
Because if you're doing like a research paper, you wouldn't have to do any researching. You could just like go back into the past and see it yourself.
Say that last part. You could go back and what?
And like see the whole thing yourself.
Oh yeah. Because you could go back and see historical events. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you could write really great papers and do well on school projects. Is that a good summary of what you were saying?
Yeah, so you don't have to like depend on Wikipedia.
Yes, you would be time travelpedia. Very good. I like that one. So one thing you may notice is that a lot of our evidence is the same, and that's fine. But one thing you should also notice is that our reasoning for each person has been different. So that is how arguments work. You can have a piece of evidence, and then 4 different people can have 4 different reasonings for it. So that's important to note. I've got a few more hands on this one. So I said I'd do one. I'm going to do one more on this one, and then we're going to switch. And so if I didn't call on you on this one, I'll get you to the next one. Let's go with, how about Lindsay? Would you pick invisibility or time travel, Lindsay?
First, I have a question.
Sure.
Could you go back to where dinosaurs were and then quickly go back in time to get some rope so you could ride a dinosaur?
You could ride a dinosaur in the past, but you could not bring the dinosaur with you into the future.
You could,
or else people would just freak out.
Yeah, I think this would be the paradox Lawrence was talking about. You'd be breaking reality. So which one's the better superpower? Does that change your answer?
I think time travel is the better superpower because if you make like a giant mistake and you sleep through the time you're supposed to study for a test, you could always just go back in time when you're all energized and study for a test, and then you could have all the time in the world. Then you could just take the study paper with you, and then you could write it down back in time so that you already have it done, and then you could just sit back and relax because you would actually be back in time, so you could redo everything and also get to redo the fun things again before you have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very good. So, Lindsay, you kind of have a lot of reasoning in there, which is a good thing. But I kind of narrowed your reasoning down a little bit. Again, you could go back in time if you made a major mistake, like, I don't know, slept through your test, you could time travel, and then you can go give yourself enough time, you can ace the test, and then you would not be stressed. Thank you all for those arguments. Those are really good. I was not expecting 8 arguments from the beginning. Let's try this one. This one's a little bit more advanced, I guess you could say, but I bet you this class is going to have some good opinions on it, or good arguments on it, I should say. Okay, here we go. I'm going to lower everyone's hand real quick. If you give me just a second to lower everyone's hand, and then if you want to raise your hand back up, you can. So I'm lowering everyone's hand so I don't accidentally miss someone or don't give someone a chance. Okay. hang on one second, and everyone's hand is lowered. So now if you want to answer this argument, you may raise your hand. Driverless cars is our claim is driverless cars are a benefit to society. So self-driving cars basically are a benefit to society. This is our claim. As a class, we have to come up with evidence and reasoning. I've got 5 participants up. You all are going to be the world's greatest debaters. I can't wait to have you in class. Let's start with Amber. Go ahead, Amber.
I think driverless cars are a benefit to society due to the fact that accidents would be minimized to the maximum, due to the fact that drunk drivers wouldn't do anything. Bad drivers, texting drivers, basically car accidents would be a thing of the past. But there's also contradiction. Like there was a test to see if, so there's a situation where the car has to choose between crashing into someone else to save themselves or just not crashing into anyone else, but then the passenger would die. So that would be a different thing.
Sure.
But I feel like there would have been more casualties due to the fact that people are only gonna buy cars that protect themselves. But the reasoning accidents would go, but like driverless cars would still be a benefit due to the fact that most car accidents would have disappeared by now. And also people won't get stuck in the middle of the desert, get lost or anything.
Oh, that's true.
Wi-Fi.
Okay, now Amber.
Also, the car could automatically stop for gas.
True. Okay, now Amber, so what you did at the end there was you gave me like 4 arguments. So that's awesome. But let's focus on doing this one argument.
Okay.
The reasoning is a little bit like harder to explain is because when we hear car accidents go down, our natural reasoning tells us that that is a good thing, right? So what you would do here is you would present your evidence like you did, which you did an excellent job of, but then you would basically explain more people's lives would be saved, right? So then you're explaining why accidents going down is a benefit, which seems pretty obvious, right? But in debate, not everything is obvious, right? And in debate, sometimes we have to explain the obvious because the whole point of making an argument is making sure you have proof and making sure you're explaining it. So that's why when you have examples like yours, it can sometimes, the reasoning can be a little bit implied or obvious, but there it is right there, right? Ultimately, what we're saying is if accidents go down, then people's lives would be saved. You could also add in a brand new argument, you could say driverless cars are a benefit to society because you won't get stuck in the desert when you run out of gas. That could be evidence. And then your reasoning for that would be you stay safe, you don't have to walk 100 miles through the desert, something like that. Good job, Amber. Thank you. Angel, go ahead. What's your argument for driverless cars are a benefit to society?
My evidence is that so then there would be some less chance that accidents would happen.
So, okay.
If someone is sleeping on the car and then like the driver really wants to go to bed, then they could just buy a driverless car, they could go to bed, and then when they get back, they're already there.
Okay, so what I'm going to say is that first part you said is about accidents, but really your second part was you said drivers could sleep while their car is moving. And I like that one because I haven't heard it yet. So if your evidence is driverless cars are a benefit to society because you could sleep while you're traveling, why is that a benefit? Why would that be a good thing? What's our reasoning?
It's a benefit because you could get some rest. And then if you wake up, there's still some miles to go, then you would have more energy to do it now.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to put this in the third person. Drivers can sleep while, their car is traveling. And then they would be more well-rested. We'd have a more well-rested society. They would be more well-rested and overall probably healthier because the more you rest, the healthier you are. Well, as long as you get enough rest. Good job, Angel. That's the first time I've heard you could sleep while traveling as a benefit, but as someone who likes to sleep, I have to agree with you there. All right, let's go down. I'm going to get 2 more arguments here, and then we're going to go into refutation. I'm sorry if I can't get through to everyone, but if you take the
What if
classes
you
with
didn't
Maccabee,
wake
you
up?
get more opportunities to do stuff like this. Say that again.
What if you didn't wake up in time?
I guess you would just wake up at your destination, which sounds like a
but then
benefit.
You might be late.
True.
But if you did go to sleep and you were going to the grocery store, it's not very far away, and then there'd be a car in the middle of the street doing nothing.
Well, hopefully if someone's going to the grocery store, they're not too tired. Let's get some more arguments here. Amber, you have your hand raised. Go ahead. What's your argument for this one? Are you there, Amber?
Didn't I already say this? I forgot to lower.
Oh, I think you changed your name. I thought you were someone different. Aaron, go ahead. What's your argument for this one?
Well, there will be less pollution.
Oh, good one. Less pollution. And what's the reasoning for that argument? Why is that a benefit?
Well, we won't need any oil or any non-renewable energy.
Okay, so you have these 2 backwards. So your first point is that driverless cars, we're just assuming the current model, driverless cars now don't use fossil fuels. Does that sound good for your evidence?
Yeah.
So your reasoning then is that there will be less pollution, right? Because that's the reason it's a benefit. This is great. Now, if this were a real debate, obviously you would have a longer argument than this, but what you would go and do is you would go and find some good research that supported this right here. And so you couldn't just make it up. You would have to find, a scientist or an engineer or a college professor or a journalist who has written about this fact. And so you'd have to use their evidence, and then you can use your own reasoning. But that's definitely true evidence just looking at it. So I like that argument a lot. All right, let's get one more argument on this one, and then we'll go into refutation. How about Alvin? Are you there, Alvin?
Yes, I am there.
Sorry, those of you who've had your hand up forever. We're going to get Chauncey too. We're going to get Alvin and then Chauncey. I just saw Chauncey. Go ahead, Alvin. What's your argument?
Okay, mine is like, so I don't really think that driverless cars will benefit to society. I mean, it will, but it will cause a lot of problems.
Okay, so do you want to make an argument that says driverless cars are not?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it. Driverless cars are not. So Alvin's doing the counter argument. Go ahead.
So basically, I don't really think like that the cars will function really well. I mean, like I watched a lot of robot movies. I know how they end.
Okay, that's good. Now, what is the reasoning? How is this not a benefit to society?
I never said like it won't benefit, but like it just will cause a lot of problems.
Okay, so let me take a one step backwards. What we're doing is we're not saying like forever and ever, every single thing is bad or good. What you're doing is you're making one singular argument. So in this case, in order for you to complete your argument, you have to take your evidence of cars won't function very well and then make a conclusion about why that's not a benefit to society. So you may agree that there are some things that are beneficial, but in this case, you say poor functioning cars are not a benefit because why?
Okay, so they will like cause a lot of accidents if they won't function well because, well, it's not 100%. So there will be a lot of accidents.
And yeah, and people will get hurt.
Yeah,
right.
and then like the person inside the car can't really like stop the car because like it's self-driving. It's self-driving. So
good point. Okay.
I mean, like if the car keeps on going, they can't stop the car because.
True. Well, hey, I'm with you. That makes a lot of sense. You could also even say, even if it's not about accidents, your reasoning. So you can say, accidents will happen, but people will be frustrated.
It will suddenly explode.
Well, that would be worst case scenario, right? They'll be frustrated with their cars. And I don't know how your parents are, but when I get frustrated in the car, I'm not a happy person. So that could be another reasoning. Again, notice that there's 3 parts here. The claim is one thing. This evidence is one thing, but we can make 2 different conclusions off the evidence. And so keep that in mind. Arguments can be modular. All right, go ahead, Chauncey. What's your argument for this topic?
Can get free meals from drive-thrus.
Okay.
You just send your, all you need to do is send your car going to your favorite restaurant and they'll buy it for you.
Okay. Okay. And why is this a benefit to society?
So people can keep more money as when they want to eat something else other than other stuff. They need to buy it, and then you need to buy the other healthy stuff, and they have more money to save up for the other
Very
stuff.
good. So they can save their money and they have more money and they can buy other things. Okay. Now, Chauncey, this is a perfect structure of an argument. Evidence is good. Reasoning is good. I'm not sure if your evidence is true, but it'd be great if it was. But I'm still with you because it makes sense logically. And that's what we're looking for is, does your argument logically make sense? And yes, yours does. So very good. Lots of hands. I'm loving it. I'm going to go ahead and call on a couple of other people. Let's go. I saw Caroline. You had your hand up earlier. Go ahead, Caroline.
I think driverless cars are a benefit to society because you can eat lunch, breakfast, and dinner when you're driving. And the reasoning is because so you won't be hungry, and then so you won't be hungry.
Yeah, you won't be hungry and you can get a lot done. You can multitask, right? That's good. I like these. You can multitask. Okay. Very good. So I really am not going to be too excited for when you all are driving because you're going to be sleeping and eating in your car. So hopefully I'll just have a bicycle by then. But I like the arguments that everyone has made for this topic. This is this usually in our classes is a popular debate topic. And in fact, some of our students in this class have had this debate and we have like full debates on this one. And I give students time to research and build their whole speeches. And I think it's pretty fun. But I want to close out the lesson by doing refutation. So we are going to go a little bit over our time here, but I want to give everyone a chance to refute an argument as well. So if you could do me a favor and lower your hand for this one, I'm trying to call on everybody, which is another element of my class. We usually don't have 36 people in my class, so it's easier to get to everyone. But let's look at the next part of this. All of you showed argumentation skills, claim, evidence, reasoning. But the other part of debate that we're going to talk about is refutation. And refutation is refuting an argument. The way that you refute an argument is you directly clash with that argument. And so when your opponent gives their evidence and gives their reasoning, when you're refuting that argument, you're directly challenging it. So you're not coming up with a new argument. You're not coming up with a new idea that you think sounds good. Instead, this is what I call like the little brother of debate. You're just saying, oh, you said that. I'm going to say, nuh-uh. Right? Your little brother, maybe your little sister, they always argue with you if you have one at home. That's kind of like a refutation. They said this, I'm going to say the exact opposite. But unlike your little brother, you actually have to have some support behind what you're saying. The way to think about these two things, and this is the analogy that I use in my class, is when you're making an argument, it's like building a ship. You have to have a good claim. You have to have strong evidence and strong reasoning. And that's like all the parts of the ship coming together. And in a debate, it's like an ocean. And you've got lots of waves and challenges. But also what you have in the ocean of debate is you have people who are trying to break down your argument. And so refutation is kind of like the cannon, trying to shoot a hole into the boat and sink the ship. All right. And so that's when we're building arguments, we're trying to make the strongest argument we can. And when we're doing refutations, we're trying to poke as many holes in that argument as we can. So let's do one practice here. I'm going to try and get those of you that haven't really gotten a chance to share yet. But before we get to the practice, how this works is you're going to focus on the two parts of an argument that we just talked about. So when you're refuting arguments, you either want to, one, challenge the evidence. And the way that you do that is you challenge the validity. Okay, so this word is in italics because you may or may not have seen it before. Validity means the truth of something. And basically, when you challenge the validity, you're questioning whether or not the evidence is true, if it's credible. Basically, you're trying to find a way that there's something wrong with their evidence. The second way to challenge the evidence is you can also provide counter evidence. And sometimes you have counter evidence, sometimes you don't. But these are the two ways that you can try and think about challenging the evidence. The second way to break down an argument or to refute an argument is to challenge the reasoning. And as we saw in our argumentation, there are multiple ways to interpret evidence. You know, for example, we took the fewer accidents in the driverless cars, and people had different reasons why that was good. Okay. So because of that, you as the person who is refuting the argument can take evidence and say, well, you have this evidence and you said that was actually good, but really it's not that good. And so you're focusing on challenging their reasoning. All right. So if the evidence sounds good, if you can't think of how to challenge the evidence, then look to the reasoning. Okay, we're going to try this argument. I'm going to get everybody on this one that wants to share, but here's how this is going to work. I want you to try and come up with two refutations. It could be two on the evidence, two on the reasoning, or it could be one on each. And then when you're ready, I want you to share what that refutation is. I'm going to read this argument out loud. The claim is that comic books are superior to short stories. Okay, comic books better than short stories. The evidence that this person used is comic books use appealing illustrations to tell the story. The reasoning. The illustrations make people more interested in reading. So comic books get people to read more than short stories. What you're trying to do is trying to find problems with the evidence or the reasoning here. And when you're ready, I want you to share two of those refutations. Let's start with Alvin. Go ahead.
I'm refuting against the evidence here.
Go for it.
So comic books actually don't only use appealing illustrations. Sometimes they have like text bubbles. And like let's say I just gave you a bunch of pictures. I gave you a bunch of pictures and I say that these are connected. Let's say that then without kind of text bubbles to describe what's happening, nobody would understand what the images mean.
Very good. Very good. Do you have two refutations? Or is that was a good one, but is that the only one you have?
Yeah.
Very good. All right. That's a great one. Thank you, Alvin. Go ahead, Lawrence. What's your refutations for this argument?
Okay, so for the evidence, it's very biased. So basically, it's just from one person's point of view. So it might look like comic book illustrations might look more appealing to one person, but not as much to another. Also, for the reasoning, a lot of kindergartners and first graders like short stories because they are easy to read and they can learn reading from it.
Yeah, okay, very good. So appealing illustrations, right? That is a subjective term. One person might think it looks good. The other people might think it looks horrible. That's a challenge against the evidence. And then Lawrence, you also said that short stories are actually proven to be more read or more enjoyed by younger students. So that would be a challenge. It doesn't really challenge the reasoning directly, but it does challenge it a little bit, right? The reason it doesn't challenge it directly is because you're not disputing that. Well, I guess you're not saying that they're doing it more. You're just kind of saying they also do it. So you're pretty close there, but you probably want to work on refining that refutation to the reasoning a little bit. All right, I'm going to get everyone's hand because I feel real bad about not calling on people. And I'm so happy that you all have refutations for this argument. Let's go with Kate. So you can keep your hand up, but if you have your Zoom hand up, you can rest your hands. I see some people's arms are going to get really tired. So if you have your Zoom hand up, I will call on you for your Zoom hand. Kate, I think you put your hand down.
Yeah.
Okay. No, okay. You don't have an argument to share or a refutation to share?
Kind of, yes.
Go for it. Go for it.
I think short stories are inferior to comic books because my reasoning is short stories help. Let's say I give you a comic book, right?
Right.
What are you doing? You're reading speech bubbles and you'll just get addicted to these pictures and blah blah blah. Also they might be biased. So in short stories, there's more words, and let's say you're a 5-year-old. They help you to read. They help you to learn words that you might be able to use when you're like 52 or something.
52 or 37, which is how old I am. Very good. Yeah, whatever. All those old people. All right, thanks for that refutation. One thing
also,
that
they might be biased.
I know, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Kate, one thing that I would have you work on if you were to take class with me would be taking those ideas and refutations and organizing them a little bit better. So they were extremely strong, the refutations, but I got a little bit confused which part you were refuting. So just some feedback for you there, but ultimately good refutations. Want to work on organizing them a little bit, but very strong. All right, let's go ahead. Aiden, you're next.
We did this yesterday during class, and for homework, like we have to do the driverless cars one. But anyways, for this, I challenged the evidence.
Go for it. Okay.
And the reasoning. So first, the evidence. They say, well, I'm going to use the signposting.
Sure. Very good. Yeah.
So my opponent says that comic books use appealing illustrations to tell the story. However, I have a response. Not all people will think the illustrations in all comic books are appealing. They might be terrible, which is what I think.
Very good.
And for the reasoning, they said the illustrations make people more interested in reading. Well, and then it said, so comic books get people to read more than short stories. Well, actually, short stories have more words than comic books because comic books, like they may look big, but I mean, each page, there's probably only like 1 or 2 lines of writing because all the space is filled up with illustrations. And doesn't make them more interested in reading because you finish reading it in 2 minutes.
Very good. Very good. So one thing I want to point out about Aiden's response is he did use what's called the signposting method. And this is how you give more organized refutations. He paraphrased what the arguments were, and then he previewed his response, and then he explained his response. That was good. Good job, Aiden. Sophia, go ahead. Again, everyone, if you do have your Zoom hand raised, I will make sure that I call on you. So don't fear. Go ahead, Sophia, whenever you're ready.
I'll do the evidence because I think there's actually like very little words and a lot of illustrations to do. But though they don't always function to tell the story. And my reasoning is because it's like, sometimes it's like
You're cutting out a little bit for me, Sophia.
Colors instead of very bright neon, and some people do dull colors and some people still like them. So they're not always appealing.
Right. Very good. Very good. I think that's an excellent refutation. Some people's opinions of appealing can differ greatly. Very good. Very good. Leah, your turn. Go ahead. What are your refutations for this argument?
I'm refuting the evidence.
Very good. Go ahead. Let's hear it.
Sometimes comic books can be good for entertaining or for younger kids, but if you want to like just read a book for like learning or something, good, because sometimes comic books can get extremely simple and it wouldn't like boost your reading level or anything like that.
Right. Very good. So Leah, this argument, and I think some other people have made something similar, but haven't quite taken it to your level. This argument that you made, this refutation, is called a turn, T-U-R-N. And the reason it's called a turn is because you have turned the logic of the argument completely. The logic of the argument says that people will read more because of illustrations, and basically your refutation has been that people will read less. So that's a really strong refutation. Nice job. All right, and Corinne, you're up. What's your refutations for these?
I'm refuting the reasoning.
Sure, go ahead.
It says that the illustrations make people more interested in reading. And so comic books get people to read more, but it really depends on what kind of genre you want to read, because some stories are better told off with just words.
Very good.
And
I think that sounds great because some stories are told with just words. That's reasoning. That's great. That one thing too, I wanted to point out is nobody should think that the more you talk, the better your argument. Sometimes and often the efficient argument where you basically have 3 or 4 sentences is the strongest. And if you think about it, it's because you're giving your opponent fewer things to refute, right? The purpose of an argument or even a refutation is to have a logically strong structure, right? Like the ship, you want your ship to be strong. You can have a really sturdy, tiny ship, right? So always remember that. Don't think that you have to explain a whole bunch, because Corinne, for example, your reasoning was perfectly there. The evidence or the challenge to the reasoning was there, and you explained that argument really well. Good job. Let's go Chauncey. So we've got Chauncey, Aaron, Solomon, 2030 time traveler Derek, Caroline, and Angel. All right, go ahead, Chauncey. What are your refutations to this one?
So, well, there's 2 different type of comic books. There's smaller ones and big ones. So,
sure.
So the illustration, the old ones, I just say not good because, it's just some characters from popular movies, and then just add some little bit of words in it.
Okay.
And then also comic book. This man is talking about I think the new type of ones.
Okay. Chauncey, let me stop you there for just a second. I want you to finish your answer. But tell me first, which part of the argument are you refuting? Are you refuting the evidence or the reasoning?
Evidence.
The evidence. Okay. And so the evidence is comic books use appealing illustrations to tell a story. What is your refutation to that?
So illustration are only some people think it's pretty much better. And
very good.
Only some people, like short story readers, would rather pick short stories rather than comics.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. In both instances, you're saying it's up to the person. So that does weaken the argument a lot. which that's a good refutation.
So the so what it affects you only this little tiny bit, and this is your decision to lie more.
All right. Awesome job. Thank you, Chauncey. Good refutation. Let's hear Aaron.
Oh, I actually think that little stories are better because they let you think more and they let your imagination develop instead of like just looking at already made images.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
That's a good point. Excellent point. Excellent point. Solomon, what are your refutations to this argument? Thanks for your patience, everyone.
My opponent says that comic books are better and superior to short stories. But I have I forget however many responses.
A few. You could say a few if you don't remember. A few.
My opponent says that comic books use appealing illustrations to tell the story. Not all people would say that they're appealing, and I actually prefer books that do not have illustrations. Their reasoning was illustrations make people more interested in reading. But that's actually still I don't think that it really does, because I lean away from books with illustrations.
Right.
And also, they might not get people to read more than short stories.
Very good. So that would be a turn to the reasoning.
Also, short stories are for all ages. Okay. And babies wouldn't really be able to understand comic books, but if an adult read a comic book to a baby, they probably wouldn't be able to understand it. If an adult read a short story to a baby, they probably would. Also, there's grown-ups that read short stories. Like my class read aloud right now is Every Living Thing, and that is an anthology of a bunch of short stories. And they have barely any pictures.
Very good. So that's a lot of refutation there, even some new arguments there. Nice job, Solomon. All right, 2030, Derek Lee, time traveler.
Oh, so I'm doing a refutation against the reasoning.
Very good.
Comic books are full of pictures that describe the scenery. So like you don't know how to describe it in your writing.
Mm-hmm.
And they also lack words, so your teacher don't want you to read it.
Yeah, so less reading. Very good, very good. Also wanted to point out Solomon also used that signposting method. Good job on doing that. Saying the argument you're going to respond to, then responding to it. Excellent job. Derek, thank you. Let's hear from Caroline, Leah, and Grace, and that's going to close us out. So we'll end after Angela.
My name is
Angela. Angel, thank you. Go ahead, Caroline.
I'm going to be refuting against the reasoning. Mm-hmm. So the reasoning says the illustrations make people more interested in reading. So comic books get people to read more than short stories. I think that short stories actually have more words than comic books because they only have like pictures and only word bubbles, like a little bit words on each page.
Very good, Caroline. Thank you very much. Leah, what's your refutation? Caroline, that is a great refutation against the reasoning. Go ahead, Leah.
I'm refuting against the reasoning also. Because illustrations make people more interested in reading, but some short stories also have often also have lots of pictures. So I think they make short stories just as much popular as comics.
That's a new point. I don't think we've heard that refutation yet. Very good. Go ahead, Angel.
I respectfully agree. I'm refuting against the evidence.
Go ahead.
I respectfully agree that comic books use appealing illustrations to tell the story. I disagree because the illustrations just might not tell you. Like if it's super hard to read, like if you design a comic book and it's all filled out, if you put too much detail on the box, then the reader can have a hard time determining what is what. So if you put it all mixed together, then the reader might think that maybe a big lamp is you, or a tiny lamp is a tiny mouse, if you get it too jumbled up. And the illustrations, second, it won't help you explain tell the story, because the words usually tell you more. Like there's lots of describing words out there. There's lots of abstract words, lots of verbs, lots of nouns out there, lots of ideas. And then pictures can't tell you as much as words.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, it seems to me that you're challenging the part that people would be more interested in reading. It sounds like your refutation is about how it could actually be more confusing. So that's good. Again, that sounds to me like a turn. Somebody else made a turn earlier where they flipped the logic. It sounds like you're flipping the logic of this argument as well. That's great. Okay, April, what are your refutations for this argument, the comics argument?
I think comic books are better because, like, if a author he wants to describe lots of details, a comic book would show it more clearly than like just words.
Okay, so you are supporting the comics argument, it sounds like, right? So you're refuting the refutations. All right, so now we just had a debate. April just made it a debate. Thank you, April. All right, Solomon, I see you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Another one is that illustrations are actually bad. You want to be illustrations show you what it looks like, but you want to have your own picture and be creative of what it looks like. You don't want a book with illustrations telling you this is what it looked like. You want to be able to imagine what it looks like and like be in control of what you see. And like also, if you have pictures, it's only showing it. It's not actually telling you. You tell, not show. If you show a picture, they might not know what's going on. But if you use descriptive language, then they might have like a better picture. And same thing, they can imagine what it looks like better because you don't have pictures and you have descriptive words.
That's good. Solomon, you can write a whole debate speech on this topic, I think. You have a lot of information already. Very good. All right, everyone. So that is a sample, although it was almost a class length with so many participating. Obviously, we have fewer students in our class. As Zhao said earlier, we have, it's usually 4 to 6 students. I think we could take more than that, but I usually have about 4 to 6 students in all my classes. And so that means everyone gets a lot of feedback on their arguments. Everybody gets a lot of time to refute each other, and we get a lot of interaction. We had a lot of interaction in this class, which was awesome. That kind of is how our classes work. Our students that we have at Maccabee are interested in debating. They want to be there, and I'm interested in debating. And obviously I want to be here teaching you how to become a better debater. And if you liked doing this activity, then I think you'll like debate. We do a little bit different or each week, but it's all based upon this type of structure: building an argument, supporting that argument, and then trying to refute your opponent's argument. Everything we do is kind of built around becoming the best at doing that. Personally, I really enjoyed tonight. I thought you all did a great job and had some really good arguments that I haven't even heard yet. So I'm hoping that